All right, so I'm driving through a little place called Walsham Le Willows, one of many comfortable villages that pepper the byways of Suffolk. It has an air of cosy contentment, this place. And what's remarkable is that it dates its prosperity from the century that followed the Black Death. Now, we know a lot about this village because, by chance, the records for this manor survive in extraordinary detail. From the early 14th century onwards, all the business within this manor, all the obligations owed between the peasants in the village and the lord of the manor, it was all written down. And so this place has become one of those places historians visit to get a sense of the impact of the Black Death at a village level. I've got here a modern copy of those old court records, and the entry that struck me when I looked through it was this one from the 9th of October, 1353, so that's 4 years after the Black Death. And basically what we've got here is a kind of peasants' rebellion, the peasants simply refusing to work the Lord's land. We've got 34 of them listed here who were summoned for winter work and did not come. They're all listed by name. We've got Christiana Lean and Isabella Spileman, each fined threepence because they were summoned to winnow the Lord's corn and did not come. All of them were threatened with fines, none of them paid. Basically, they all went on strike. It's extraordinary. What we've got here is the traditional feudal power structure, the lord dominating the peasants, turned on its head. The peasants, it seems, were calling the shots. Why? Well, in fact, if you think of the sheer devastating impact of the Black Death, it's hardly surprising. The fact is, the death toll in those years had created a labour shortage. There were simply too few people to work the village lands, which put those that survived in a great position to negotiate. When the lord of the manor came strutting, demanding they work his fields, they said no. Or at least not on the old terms, not out of obligation. Maybe it's time you started paying us for the work we've done unpaid for so many centuries. And however much the powers that be fought against this newfound confidence in the peasantry, within a matter of decades, serfdom was no more. Now, I want to show you something here in Walsham that for me sums up how much the Black Death changed things. And you're going to say, here we go, it's just another church. But I want you to compare this church, built in about 1400, that's 50 years after the Black Death, with all those poky little Norman churches that I showed you earlier. Now, don't get me wrong. This is just a village church, all right, paid for by the people of Walsham. It's not a cathedral, it's nothing special, but it's very impressive. It's got this great sense of light because of all these windows, and glass was seriously expensive back then. It's got this majestic vaulted ceiling. The people of Walsham built this church to express their confidence. They built this church to show their wealth, and that wealth was a direct consequence of the Black Death. You take the story, for instance, of Matthew Gilbert, just one of those in the records whose fortunes we can trace. He had started with just a few strips of land, maybe 2 acres, inherited from his father. And the plague, when it came, hit him hard. His wife died. But she left him her family's strips of land, 5 acres in all. And when his brother William died, Matthew got William's strips too. And then, 3 plague years later, with so many villagers dead, he bought a whole stack of land from the lord of the manor. And he enclosed those strips of land into fields. And by 1370, the year he died, he passed to his children not the 2 acres he had started with, but a private holding of 28 acres. It's not bad going. Now, question. What did Matthew Gilbert do with all that land? We couldn't grow crops in the same volume we'd grown crops before the Black Death because of the labour shortage. And in any case, with so many people dead, the market for all that food collapsed. And so Matthew Gilbert did what many farmers round here did. He let the grass grow, and he made his money not through crops, but in wool. Suffolk, after the Black Death, was the heart of England's wool trade. And for the heirs of men like Matthew Gilbert, the possibilities now seemed boundless. This wasn't a world of peasants forced to labour for others for little return. This was a new kind of England where you could profit from your own hard work. In the market towns of Suffolk, yeoman farmers brought their wool to market, and they sold it to the guildsmen, and the guildsmen sold that wool to the weavers, who got rich selling cloth to Flemish merchants, everyone taking their cut in this new market economy. This was a world in which status was defined not by birth, but by property, by wealth. And out of the worst natural disaster in our history, it seems we'd made good.